You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough.
Hey guys, welcome to the Need to Know Pod. I'm your host, Chef Sahera, and I'm so excited to finally start this pod, very first episode. So I'm excited to have you guys get to know me. I want to get to know some of you guys, and I'm here to talk about all things in the culinary world, more specifically baking. So I am a professionally trained pastry chef, and all that means is that I went to school, right, for pastry arts. But I also I like to think I'm a good cook, so I will be talking some things culinary. So just want to share all things culinary. So I definitely have a love for the culinary world. So before we get started into our really first episode and start tackling stuff, let me just tell you a little bit about myself and what I think you need to know, right? Things I think you need to know about me, right? So again, as I mentioned, I'm a pastry chef. Well, let's take it back. I started out cooking. Just growing up, I always cooked, right? And I do like to eat, so let me just say that. So, just wanted to always cook. Don't ask me where I got it from, but always was in the kitchen, and just always cooking. I have two sisters, so we had to take turns cooking, and I noticed that I was doing a lot of the cooking. So just getting recipes from my aunt, my grandmother, my mother, her friends. So and just always practicing. um so as I got older, I just continued to cooking for people's functions, and I like food, and I like that when you're around food, it brings people together. So I really do like really appreciate everything about the food, how it brings people together. And anytime there's a function, I'm bringing some kind of dish. I love the way people react when they taste my food, and now when they taste my baked goods. So as I just years and years, so now at this stage I'm grown, right? So now as a child I like to cook, but now I'm grown, fully grown adult. And I always cooked, like I said, and always had visions of maybe one day I'll open up a restaurant or something like that. So I figured let me perfect my craft and go to culinary school. Well, the first attempt, just looking into it, it wasn't the right time for me. It wasn't the right time. So we had the explosion of the Food Network. When I was a young girl, Food Network wasn't out, of course, but now that they have the Food Network, so all these shows are coming on, and as time went by, they had better shows, right? So now they have all these. I watch baking shows, back to back baking shows, and specifically, there was an episode of a Bobby Flay throwdown with like a cake decorator, I believe it was, and Duff Goldman. He did Ace of Cakes, and I decided to. Well, not I decided. That was the moment I realized that you can go to school for pastry arts. I didn't realize that was a thing. Even though I cooked, I just never thought about it. I never considered baking. I always thought, well, you cook. Never ever considered baking. I couldn't even bake a box cake, truth be told. So it just didn't dawn on me. So fast forward, the day I turned on my birthday, I turned 35 and I went to culinary school. I went to culinary school as a full-time mom, wife, employee. So it was a lot. And I went to school full time. But I will tell you, there's nothing like following your dream, your passion. Because when I walked in that door of the culinary school, and just so you know, I went to the Art Institute of New York. It was formerly the New York Restaurant School here in New York City. Now I believe that building has the I feel like it's the Jackie Robinson Museum, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, went to culinary school and just I was so amazed. First, I was amazed at how many young people were in there. But I went to school at night because I was working during the day, and it was people my age at night. for people my age there at night going to culinary school. So, but nonetheless, just seeing all the big equipment and the commercial equipment like you only see on TV, or so it just was a dream come true for me. I never missed not one day going to school. I practiced the things that I learned, and it was so much information and like so many eye-opening moments that I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. So while I was in culinary school, I continued to practice, practice, practice. Whatever we learned in school, I would come home and practice. And if it didn't work out, I would go ask the chef, like I tried it and it didn't work. So that's one takeaway I had. If you have the opportunity in whatever it is that you're doing, if you have the opportunity to get knowledge from somebody who has the experience, definitely do that. Definitely, definitely do that. I took full advantage of it. I even started selling cakes. I even started selling cakes while I was in culinary school, just practicing, honing my skill. So let's fast forward to graduated. I'm still working and just was honing my skill at home in my kitchen. And my husband built a my kitchen for me down in the basement. He built out a kitchen for me in the basement, and I just was practicing, 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 still selling cakes, and I had a function come up here in New York City. It's called the Circle of Sisters. Now it's changed quite a bit, but it was a 2-day event over the weekend, and just so many people were gonna turning out. So many people. So I made a decision right there. Like I'm gonna do this event. I'm gonna have all these baked goods, because one thing that I am extremely passionate about is showcasing different desserts that I didn't know existed. In school, I was making things that I know people in my community would never taste, ever taste, um, or just not accessible because it's not in our community, right? And just something as simple as macaroons. I'm not saying our people don't know what macaroons are, but I just know that you can't just walk down the block and get a macaroon. And I'm not talking about a macaroon that's sold in like a big box store, but I I would say rugula. And as I would make these pastries in school, I would bring them home to my family, of course, but as I was traveling from school, I also worked in the subway system. So as I would get on the train and go home, and I would see the different clerks, it was just so much stuff every day. I would give out the stuff. So people started telling me how good this stuff was. So like rugula was something that I made that got a really, really good response. So that was one of my items that I was known for, was my rugula. And I had never heard of rugula before. I didn't know what it was. And just so you know, it's a Jewish pastry with a fruit filling. So started making rugula, just so many different things. So I knew these are the kind of items I wanted to bring to this big event held at the Javits Center here in New York City. So did that. The turnout was amazing. I employed my friends. I had a team. We was at that table, and we really, really, like, it was so successful. And that was the first time that I realized that I could make really good money selling baked goods. But so I did that 3 years in a row. And in 2016, I decided that I wanted to have a pastry shop. And that's what I did. I opened up a pastry shop here in more specifically Staten Island. And that's a whole nother podcast in itself about the experiences being the only person selling gourmet coffee, as well as gourmet pastries. And if you know anything about Staten Island, you know that it has its challenges. It has its challenges. I will say Staten Island is the only borough that uh uh Trump won. Yeah, so just put that together. So Staten Island was interesting, but nonetheless, I love the experience. No regrets, no regrets. So had my shop for 4 years, met so many wonderful people, and the pandemic hit, and I opted to pivot from having a brick and mortar to doing it online, to becoming online baking instructor to having a baking membership. So, and just things that I learned along the way is what I feel like people need to know, right? And just my experience as a shop owner, things that I felt like the average person doesn't know. Um, having an online community of bakers who, you know, if you ask people, I don't want to say everybody thinks they could bake, but I ran into a lot of people who like to bake or bake on the side, and there's some basic fundamental information that they didn't have. Or I just feel like when you have a little better insight on why you do certain things, not just in baking, it that's how I learn. You got to explain to me, why are we doing this? So that's why I feel like need to know. What do you need to know about baking? What do you need to know about like the culinary world? What do you need to know about food safety? So these are some of the things that I'll tackle. And I may tell you something you may feel like you don't need to know, but I may still want to tell you. But so that's what made me think of this podcast. And I've been wanting to get it out, for some time now. But now, sometimes you need time to get more clarity. So I'm clear on just getting that message out. And also I want people to know that baking is a skill, right? If you need a few dollars, you may want to bake a cake or two, right? But if you right, it's definitely a viable skill that you can take with you anywhere. You can take with you anywhere. So I'm just nobody could ever take that from me. I'm not saying you have to go to culinary school, but if you learn some things, some basic stuff, I think that you'll do fine in the baking world. And baking can be intimidating. Baking definitely can be intimidating, but I know specifically I never worked with yeast before I went to school. I just felt like there's no way I could ever work with some kind of yeasted product. But once you understand yeast, now just give me the recipe. Give me the recipe, and there's nothing that I won't be able to work with when it comes to yeast. There's some things that I probably choose not to work with because some things are difficult to bake because or make, I should say, because of the how intricate it is, the different steps that are involved, right? It may not just be mix one with two and voila. No, some things are very intricate when it comes to making. So uh
You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough.
So yeah, so that's what the need to know pod is. That's how it is. It's me just telling you the things I feel like you need to know. And also, so moving forward in the upcoming episodes, know that I want to take some questions from you guys. So send in some baking questions. You can leave it in the comments, as well as also on our social media platform as well. But also, if you have recipes that you struggle with, this is something that I'm kind of passionate about, that people are able to put up recipes like just all willy-nilly. And some of the recipes aren't good at all. One of my clients, we were trying to cost out one of her recipes, and when I took a look at the recipe, just the whole process was like insane. Like I couldn't understand, where'd you get this recipe from? But if you just know, like I'm baking something I learned how to bake when I was a child, then that's fine. But sometimes once you understand like the technical aspect of it, or what's right about it, or what's wrong, or what method to use, I feel like you'll make better decisions when it comes to using a recipe online. I definitely use recipes online, but I know how to decipher a good one from one that's not so good, as well as I'll combine two recipes. I'll take something that's good about one with another one that looks like, you know, that has some good qualities and make it my own. So yeah, that's that. So definitely I want to do like a recipe analysis. So if there's a recipe that you're struggling with, send it in to me. I can probably tell you like what I feel like you might be doing wrong, I'll definitely give you some feedback on that. So that's what I'm looking forward to, as well as giving you some food safety tips. Food safety tips. I think that is so important because I definitely believe that food can should be safe for all, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes, as a food consultant, more specifically food safety consultant, it just I am so incensed that some of these food establishments are able to continue to have their doors open, and they have C ratings. I don't know about you, but I know I don't want to eat in a restaurant that has a C rating. But I actually, and this is public knowledge, I can look at their rating and determine why. It's one thing if maybe I don't know, maybe you didn't have, really there's no reason. It's like certain basic stuff. I'm trying to think of a reason why how I would eat at a C rating. Um and I wouldn't. But what I'm seeing in places just here in New York, what I'm seeing is, of course, it's expected that some of these places have rodents, right? But you can't be infested. You can't be infested. You have to keep your food at certain temperatures. So all of those things. So we'll get into that during our food safety segment as well. But yeah, so that's why I feel like that's important to put in there, because I want you guys to be safe when you're out eating at these different locations. So with that said, I just wanted to get into, that's what you need to know about Sahara for now. And as time goes on, I will definitely tell you more. And when it pops up, like, oh, maybe you need to know that. So, with that being said, let's jump into what I think is really, really important here. And it's the essential tools. It's the essential tools. Okay, now let's get into some stuff that the first thing I really, really think you need to know, or the second, right? You need to know who I am. You got that. So now let's talk about the tools, the essential baking tools. And I think the tools are really, really important because I know growing up, and things have changed. So, I don't hate to keep referencing, when I grew up, but you go on those experiences. I didn't have all the baking tools. I think there's so many people I know now that don't have essential baking tools because they don't think about baking. But if it's something that you're interested in, if it's a skill that you definitely want to learn, just some basic tools, because if you have the right tools, it could be the difference between how your baked good turns out. So these are just some basic tools. I'm just going to go over the basic things to get you started right away. If you want to make a muffin, like this, you can make a muffin with the stuff I'm going to tell you. So just some basic tools. Know that when you start specializing like in cookie decorating or cake decorating, those are totally different tools that are required, very separate from the tools I'm going to go over now. So if you want to know more about that, let me know and I could definitely go over them, but very different tools. So this is just going to be able to get you started and allow you to practice and perfect that skill. So let's get started. So the very first tool I think you should have is a kitchen scale. Like like this is the first thing that they showed us on day 1 of culinary school. You need a kitchen scale because it's all about accuracy. Kitchen scales measures weight. So it'll weigh in grams or ounces as opposed to dry measuring cups. Dry measuring cups measures volume. So you definitely want to get yourself a kitchen scale. I'll definitely do a whole podcast about just the importance of accuracy. But kitchen scales allow us to be more accurate. Professional chefs use kitchen scales, so it allows you to increase and decrease your recipe, but we'll get into that in another pot. But if you want to at least follow along with me, or you see some chefs, very rarely will you find, I haven't seen, but just in the industry, we use scales. You're not going to find recipes that says 1 cup of this or 2 cups of that. All of my professional recipes are in weight. So kitchen scale. Secondly, I think it's really important. You need some kind of mixer. Do not think you're gonna beat everything together. I did teach a cookie class, uh, and it was for the holidays with a bunch of nurses, and yeah, the lady who actually one of the ladies who actually put the class together, she she didn't have a mixer, which was fine. But just everything that we went over, and I gave out a list of the tools you would need. I gave out the ingredients, and she did. Sometimes people do what they want to do, right? So, um, long story short, she didn't have a hand mixer, so we were making cookies, and you have to cream your butter and sugar, and that's going to be really, really difficult to do by hand. So, just you need at least a hand mixer. As you start to develop your skills, you may want to get a stand mixer, or as you start to increase the amount of baking that you will do. So I love my stand mixer. So yeah, definitely a hand mixer, but as you increase or develop, if you're getting started and you feel like you enjoy this baking thing, then definitely invest in a stand mixer. I definitely would say a whisk. That is like non-negotiable. You need a whisk. Um, I don't think I had a whisk growing up, but now that I know how to use one, I use it from everything. Of course, we use it to incorporate air into our eggs or our heavy cream, um, or just blend items together. You can beat your eggs with it, but also it's great for gravies or just cooking non-bacon related stuff, but just cooking it smooths things out. I always use it for a gravy. I always use it. I like some grits now. So, if you want some lump-free grits, get yourself a whisk. What else do we have? Of course, we have our measuring spoons and measuring cups. Measuring spoons is one thing. You definitely need measuring spoons. Growing up, I didn't have measuring spoons. I know that for a fact. I know that to me, a teaspoon was the small spoon in a drawer, and a tablespoon was the biggest spoon, right? Of course, there's so many different spoon sizes. I just didn't think about it. I know specifically a recipe, my mother's cornbread recipe that I still use to this day. But I feel like it called for 2 teaspoons. I know I was putting too much baking soda in it. I know that for a fact because it's just not the same. So definitely get some measuring spoons. Um Now the measuring cups, even though I know I said you should have a scale, measuring cups are good also. Measuring cups, we call them dry measuring cups. They measure volume. So if you want to do a cup of raisins or a cup of rice, so you definitely need measuring cups. I do. Um, the one thing I will say that I use my measuring cups for is like my muffins. Muffins are quick to make. You can make muffins, whip them together in less than 10 minutes. At least with the bacon aside, you can whip up muffins in 10 minutes, really. But so you definitely need a dry measuring cups. But what I didn't know, I didn't know way back when that the glass measuring cups, we call liquid measuring cups, really should just be measured for liquids, not for rice. Easily can remember just measuring rice growing up in a liquid measuring cup. That's what it was. It was just a measuring cup. So just go figure. But I only use liquid measuring cups to measure liquid. But I definitely feel like that is something you should have. Um, what else do we have here? You definitely need a rubber spatula. Love a rubber spatula. All spatulas aren't created equal, but you need a rubber spatula because as you are mixing stuff in your bowls or your mixing bowls, you're gonna need that spatula to scrape that bowl clean. Believe me when I tell you. When I thought of spatulas, I thought of the spatula you turn pancakes with. So no, you need a rubber spatula, and I'll definitely insert the a picture of that so you can Also, I want to say you want to get a heat proof spatula, because as you're mixing this stuff, you want your spatula to be able to stand up against that heat. Um, so I heat up stuff like uh well, I wouldn't use it for like sugar or syrups or anything like that, but I just know when stuff is really hot, I find like the cheaper brand tends to like not hold up to the heating process, and it starts to break off at the ends. So of course you need some baking pans. That goes without saying. I definitely would recommend starting off with one size if you are new to baking, maybe like a 7 inch if you're not gonna bake a big cake, or between 7 and 9. I do have 7, 8, and 9. I actually have more than that, but what I will suggest is if you want to learn how to bake cakes, you need at least two of each. I make 3 layer cakes, so I have three of each. So I have sets of 7 inch pans, sets of 8 inch pans, because I need to bake them all at once, not one cake at a time. So a lot of recipes you'll see, they'll say, two pans, but I like a 3 layer cake, so I have sets of three. But whatever size you're gonna get, just get a set of that pan. You also, what falls under baking pan, you can get a cupcake pan. If you think you're never gonna make cupcakes, then of course you don't need it. But I do like a cupcake pan to have in arsenal, um, as well as sheet pans. Sheet pans, I have half sheet pans, I have quarter sheet pans, I have full sheet pans. I don't suggest full sheet pans. I'm just saying what I have, but full sheet won't fit into your oven. But half sheet pans are like absolutely, absolutely a must, because if you want to cook cookies, you need a good baking pan. They sell these things in stores, but I'm a firm believer in using quality tools, because it holds up to the process, and depending on what you have, it's not going to hold up. If you get a cheap When I started, I had like a cheap cheesecake pan, and then over time, it starts to peel. It's not releasing, it's not holding up. It's just not good. So I would definitely recommend just commercially, well, not commercially, it doesn't have to be commercial, but sometimes when you hear commercial tools, you think that it has to be so expensive, but it definitely does not. I actually have a bacon supply store, the Sweetness Society store, not the Sweetness Society store, that I sell some of the tools that I feel like you should have. So a lot of these tools you can go to my site and purchase, but if you don't purchase from me, I'm just saying purchase from someplace because I think these tools are a must. Ice cream scoopers, definitely I would say recommend it. I definitely recommend the ice cream scooper, because when you scoop out your cookies, when you scoop out that cupcake batter or muffin batter, it's very messy to try to measure each baking cup evenly. The ice cream scoop, and I definitely suggest different sizes of the ice cream scoop per the ice cream scoop. I always call it ice cream scoop, but I guess I better start adding the ER to it. But the ice cream scoopers, like, hands down, is one of my, like, I don't know how I can live without it. I use it to mold my cake pops. I use it for um just everything. Cake pops, if you want to make meatballs, if you want your meatballs to be the same size, get an ice cream scooper. A sifter is great to have. I'll actually insert like I'll insert two pictures of the sifters, because the sifter that I was introduced to was from my mother-in-law. I know for a fact nobody in my family had a sifter. But, uh, there's also, they look different. In school, we had a really large one that was called the sieve or sieve, let's say sieve. But, and we use that. You can use that, as well as, but the sifter my mother-in-law introduced me to was the small metal one with the handle that you crank, right? So, not so much. I don't use that anymore, but I still have it. I still have it. Not anymore. I just won't use that. I will not use that. um, and I think this list I have in front of me has 8. I'm sure there's like more. I feel like I'm missing something, but when I think of it, I'll definitely go back maybe in the next episode and show you. But Lastly, I highly recommend bakers use parchment paper. Parchment paper is like hands down, to me, is not optional. Actually, none of these tools are optional, but parchment paper is a must. It's not a tool, but it is, I'm going to call it a requirement. The only thing I would say is that when you purchase your parchment paper, try to get sheets of parchment paper. I do not like the parchment paper that's on a roll, because what happens is when you break it off, it just keeps rolling up on a pan. So you can get parchment paper sheet specific to the size pan that you have. In terms of sheet pans, and you use it for your cakes, use that parchment paper. You cut out cake circles. If you have a 7-inch cake, cut out a 7-inch cake circle with the parchment paper. Your cakes will come out so easily. It's just not optional. And we use parchment paper from day one in culinary school. And I just will not bake without it. The only thing I bake without parchment paper is my pound cake. Like, there's no way you can use it. So that's the only thing. But every cake that I make has parchment paper. And you use it to line your cake, your sheet pans, your half sheet pans. You never just bake on top of a sheet pan. So to preserve the quality of your pan as well. So but that's it, guys. That is it. So now you need to know the things that you need to know. We kind of went over it. Again, like, you need to know who I am. You need to know about these tools. Clear, really, really, really important. You need to have those tools as a foundation. And then the next episode, we will definitely get into the ingredients, because I think there's some important stuff you need to know about the ingredients that will allow you to be able to make better choices when it comes to your recipes, or, the different flours you need, the different sugars. And I think sometimes I take for granted, like, what do you mean you don't know the difference between regular brown sugar or light brown sugar and sugar in the raw? And some people don't, because it's not something they think about. So those are some of the things I'm going to get into, as well as, again, if you have a baking question, feel free to drop it on my social media page, Need to Know Pod, as well as send me an email at needtoknowpod@gmail.com. Um, yeah, and I think that is it. I think that is it, guys. So that's it. I hope you have enjoyed this very first episode of Need to Know Pod with me, Chef Sahera. And feel free, I would love if you guys left a review. If you have your baking questions, yes, submit that. If submit your recipe questions, follow us on social media, at Need to Know Pod. On YouTube, you can follow me at Chef Sahira Speaks, as well as Need to Know Pod. Um, yeah, and make sure you subscribe, make sure you share and tell people about Need to Know. Let them know what they need to know. You need to start listening to Need to Know, the Need to Know Pod with Chef Sahara. So I'll leave you with this, guys. I know baking can be a little intimidating for some, but don't give up. It's all about practice and passion. And with that being said, thanks for watching this episode of Need to Know Pod with me, your girl, Chef Sahara, and I'll see you next time.
You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you.